Good morning, everyone. So today, you and I are going to talk about quality. Let's get into it. Now, this is not going to be one of those talks where I'm going to tell you about my definition of quality. I'm not going to get fussy with you and try to explain to you the different things that could indicate quality or the things that are very subjective and highly. I'm sorry, because I had this horrible experience once upon a time where back in school there was this guy who came in. He was basically a tester, a professional tester. And for those of you who don't know what that is, you can actually I would argue probably one of the second most common occupation in programming after being a programmer is a tester. And a tester is virtually a person that verifies that the code that is produced by the software developer is working correctly. Now, this person had I think that he had some type of complex, because I've never ever met somebody that gave me such a strong sensation of trying to promote his own value. Basically, he actually said these words. He said to us, I respect software developers because what you do is, it is difficult, but you should not underestimate how important testers are, because what we do is equally difficult as to what you are doing. And although I agree that I think it's great. I mean, I love to have a tester on my team because it makes my software much better. I was a little bit offended at that because he's basically in a college classroom trying to explain that to everybody in that room, that the process of verifying that something we created is as difficult and as challenging as actually creating the thing. And I don't agree at all with that. At all. And I'll gladly have a discussion about that. I think there's a lot of value in that, but to me that is it's a little bit offensive. Anyway, so what he basically goes on to try to do, which is he gives us 3-4 different cups, and he shows us one in plastic, one from basically porcelain, I think, or something of that nature, and one high quality one in some very modern steel. And then he tries to explain the differences between quality and how subjective and in the beholder's eyes these things are. Now, I'm not going to talk to you about this, because what I want to talk to you about when it comes to quality is a little bit different. Quality software and being able to produce quality software is, in my opinion, more interesting if we take a little bit of a think on how you achieve producing quality software. Stop me if you recognize this. You have learned software development, or you know how to program. You sit down, you write your code, and whenever you do that, you feel like you don't get the sort of results that you want. You can get some things right, and sometimes you can get pretty close, because usually what you do is that you go out there on the internet and you see something that feels very impressive and really cool, and you say, hey, that's pretty awesome, I want to try to build that. You start building and you realize that, shit, this is very tricky. It's very difficult to produce this level of quality, or this level of complexity, or whatever you want to call it. And so you feel disheartened, you feel a bit disappointed at yourself, and you feel like the dumbest person in the world. Now, what I want to talk to you about is that I want to tell you something that I realized, and it has helped me a lot to kind of get over this, how do I put it, this disappointment I have in myself when I produce something that I don't feel as if it is all that good, or it doesn't hold a certain level of quality. And I'll touch on something I think is very, very important. So when I first started out, I was exactly like that. I could produce things, but I always felt as if the thing that I'm producing is not at the same level as what somebody else is producing, or some much more advanced, more complicated system. I couldn't really get that sensation that, yeah, the thing that I just made is equal in quality to whatever that other person or that other company made. And now you've heard me talk about in a few past videos, if you watched some of them, that one of my least favorite things about working in software development is that the perception from the users is, or rather the requirements that our users put on our applications are in very general terms extremely high. Basically, Google and Facebook and their applications is perceived as being the standard or the default, and that's a horrible thing, because they have more money than God and tons of among the best developers in the world to produce that. So that makes it very tough on everybody else if that's the baseline. But what I urge you to try to have a think about is to do something that I summarize in this manner. I call it quality through quantity. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean that it kind of depends on your perception and who you are as a person, but in my experience, the best way to achieve quality is to simply produce as much as you can humanly produce. Basically practicing your ability to write quality and understanding the different ways that you can write a software, basically write a program, through just iterating over and over and over, building things over and over and over. Think of it as this way. If you look at the car 50 years ago, and you look at the car today, it's very much the same principle. You have to start out producing things that may not feel as if you compare them to something that has advanced much further in its development or its natural evolution. You have to start there and produce things that are not as high quality as something much more advanced. And you build that thing, and then you look at it and you say, all right, these were the things that I liked about this, these were the things that didn't go so well, and then you build the next thing. And for each iteration, every time you start a new project, you start building something, release it, and look at it, you will improve, you will hone your skills, and faster and more get to closer and closer to that sensation of quality. And I want you to know as well that even today, me, as a professional who has been working for a few years now, I still feel when I release something, sometimes I'm very happy with the thing that I made. So it's not all bad, but I still feel often that, all right, this thing that I just built, it doesn't meet my well, I wouldn't say it's unreasonable, but my high expectations on the software that I produce. I didn't really feel that I did this in a perfect manner, and I'm here to tell you that you will feel the same way, because unfortunately, software is very rarely perfect. There are always circumstances or oversights or things that are going to make your theoretical or utopian vision of how the program or the software that you're releasing, there's always going to be something that will make it a little bit less than perfect, and you're always going to judge yourself very harshly, or at least that's what I do. You are always your own worst critic. At least I hope that you can relate to that. And that's something that honestly, I think that if you have a healthy balance in things, that's actually a good thing, because that will keep you improving. It will make you want to do better. Don't be too harsh on yourself, because nobody produces perfect software. Even the big companies, Google, Facebook, and stuff, these really big companies, they don't write perfect software, because in theory it's not possible to write perfect software, or rather it's extremely difficult to write things that are so high quality that you just feel extremely proud with everything that you built. I think that is something that we may have as children. Children think in terms of perfect or utopian vision, like world peace, all of that stuff. And as you grow older and become more of an adult, you realize that there's very seldom something that is just perfect or just works. Almost everything you do is a compromise, or at least it has pros and cons. And that's exactly what I want you to take away from this. I want you to know that although that you today don't feel that you can produce the same type of quality as somebody else, think of it as the car. You have to start building things that are not as great and just iterate, build things over and over and over until the stuff that you produce becomes almost the same quality or the same quality as somebody else. And even when you get there, your perception of your own quality is most likely going to change. And that's where you have to look back. And I'm very bad at this, but you have to look back and look at what and that's why I urge you, save your code, because it's a very healthy exercise to look back and see how much worse you were a year ago or something of that nature. Because when you get to a point where you can actually produce the things that you today feel that you can produce, you will already be comparing yourself to things that are even more advanced. And that's a good thing, because it's going to keep you on your toes. It's going to make you improve, and it's going to make you better. But try to be nice to yourself. And remember that although it doesn't feel that way, you are improving, and you might actually reach your dreams and your goals without realizing that you got there in the first place.